that YouTube business. Somebody asked me recently if I looked my name up on Google, and I said, no, I'm scared too. Yes, I said, if I listen, I've heard myself. I never would speak again. It's a joy to be here. Jenny, it's good to see you again. Thank you for those songs. I had never heard either one of those songs. The Lord really spoke to my heart. Thank you so much. It's a joy for me to be here, and I just appreciate the invitation to come down. And I came a bit early because I was going to meet some friends down in Florence, and I was going to meet them at McDonald's, but I showed up at the wrong McDonald's. You know, you tell your GPS find McDonald's, well, you know. But anyway, we did get together, and I enjoyed that little bit of time, but I'm looking forward to the evening, looking forward to tomorrow with you. And I just appreciate it again. And I'm glad to see the girls down here. Anybody down there that's 12 years old, or anybody down there, you're not 12 years old yet? Nobody's 12 years old yet? But I'm glad to see the girls are here, so thanks for having them come. So I'm going to tell you about my testimony, and I hope that you don't think that I'm telling you this because I think you need to know about me. But I think you need to know about what a great God we have. We have such a great, wonderful, wonderful God that we serve. And so that's what I'm hoping, that you will go away from here. And I've been praying, I've been asking others to pray. I said, well, I want for us, for this conference, to put the Lord Jesus on a pedestal. Let's put him up on a pedestal. And let's go away from here tomorrow evening loving him more than we did today. And that would be my goal for each one of us, including myself. But I am from, anybody ever heard of Taylor, South Carolina? Anybody ever heard of Dark Corner, South Carolina? Oh, we got one down there. I grew up in Dark Corner. There are several different stories about where it got its name, but the most prevalent one is because of the bootlegging that went on there, and my brother was one of them. So I said, where I grew up, they didn't raise missionaries, they raised bootleggers. But I was saved when I was 11 years old. I was in a church that was dead. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and that's a miracle in itself that I got saved there. But we had a revival. Once a year we'd have a revival, and we had a preacher come that was really, really good. I don't remember what he preached on, but I just remembered he was really good. And the Lord was speaking to my heart. I was 11 years old, and I got really scared because I thought you couldn't get saved except at revival. That's the only time I ever knew anybody get saved and have revival and give an invitation. People would come forward and then baptize them, and then that was it until the next year. And so the end of that revival, I got so scared because I thought, what if I die before next year? And so I was scared to wait any longer. So I went forward on the last night of the revival, and my Sunday school teacher led me to the Lord, and again, I didn't even know that she knew how to do it. But then when I was 12 years old, now we had never seen a missionary. We didn't have those preachers come to our church. And so I had never seen a missionary. But I had a pastor's wife who was always giving me books to read. And she just sort of tucked me under her wing and was pushing me in all the activities of the church. And she was always giving me these books. And there were missionary biographies and missionary stories. So I was reading about Adoniram Judson and Amy Carmichael and Mary Slessor and all these missionaries way back in the 1800s. And the Lord spoke to me through those books. And when I was 12 years old, I went forward in that church and told them that God was calling me to be a missionary. Nobody took me serious. I know it because later they told me so. But the Lord put a desire in my heart like you wouldn't believe, to be a missionary. I wanted to be a missionary. I just thought I could not live if I didn't get to be a missionary. I daydreamed about being a missionary. I would dream about all the things I was going to do when I got to be a missionary. And that was on my mind just about lots of thoughts after that I wanted to be a missionary. Now, there were 6 of us kids. I was the maladjusted middle one. And my older sister, she raised one of the younger brothers, and I sort of raised the baby because my dad died when I was 8 years old. My mom was trying to put food on the table, and I just got an email from that baby brother. He's a missionary with the Indians in Arizona, and I just got an email from him yesterday, and he signed it. you're a handsome and highly intelligent brother. So when I answered it back, I said, you're a lovely and very highly intelligent sister who taught you all you know. But I started talking about being a missionary. I'm going around the house, I'm talking about going to Bible school. Well, when I grew up out there in the country where I grew up, nobody had ever even been to college. And here I was, the poorest kid in the whole community, and I'm talking about going to Bible college, and, which was unheard of, was impossible. There's no way in the world that was going to happen. But my mama forbade me to talk about it. And she said, I'll get you through high school and you're on your own. And believe me, she meant it. And I didn't talk about it anymore, but I kept thinking about it. And all through high school, I would pray, beg God, please, please let me be a missionary. If you'll just let me be a missionary, I'll do anything. I'll go anywhere. You know, I'll die for you. And I found out it's harder to live for him than it is to die for him. But, you know, I promised him all these things if he would just let me be a missionary. And I graduated high school and moved over to Greenville. You know, that was a foreign country. I had never even been to Greenville alone. That was a big town, and I'd get lost in that place. So my mama, true to her word, I graduated one Thursday, and she moved me out of the house the next Thursday. At 17 years old, she moved me into the YWCA in Greenville and loaned me enough money for my first week's rent. I got a job at the Greenville General Hospital, the old hospital, and as a medical secretary at 17 years old. I'm surprised I didn't kill somebody. I mean, I was naive and green as all get out. You know, I grew up on the farm. I grew up milking a cow when I went to college, and I got rich picking cotton, you know. And so I grew up out there on the farm, and put me in the middle of the city and put me in a job at a hospital as a medical secretary. But I started at school, and I started at Furman. Because at that time I was Southern Baptist, and I started at Furman University. And how many of you have ever heard of Dr. Harold Sadler? Well, I joined Tabernacle. All I knew was Baptist. I grew up Baptist. That's Baptist. I joined Baptist Church. I didn't know any difference. And then I heard about Tennessee Temple. Dr. Robertson came to our church to visit for a revival meeting. And I made the mistake of going up and speaking to him. And of course, he thought I needed to go right now. And I said, I can't. I've got a good job and I have to work. I can't do it. He said, how much money you got? And I said, $50. He said, that's plenty. Well, I got in my car and I was down now. Chattanooga was a real foreign country. And I got into Chattanooga and we get there just a day after I got there. The back axle of my 48 Chevrolet car fell out. I spent all my money. I had no money. I couldn't run back home because I had no money to get home on. And but he helped me get a job at a little private hospital there. And I worked my way through school. And then I applied to the mission board, and I thought they will never let me go to the mission field. I didn't fit the profile of what I thought a missionary ought to be. You know, I was a country girl and naive and all this stuff, and I thought I didn't fit that profile. And I thought they're never going to let me go. And I was so excited, you know, I got accepted. I thought, wow, I got accepted. They said I could go. And I got on that airplane, and I had never been on an airplane before in my life. I could hardly wait to get on that airplane. Now, when you apply to a mission board, you're a candidate. And once you're accepted, you're an appointee. When you get on the airplane, you're a missionary. I know getting on an airplane doesn't make anybody a missionary, but that's the way they categorized it. And I wanted on that airplane. I had never been on an airplane before. People from the church, that was when they could come right out to the airplane, you know. And the people from the church were out there to see me off. And I got on that plane, and I said, goodbye, everybody, I'm out of here. I am gone. I was so excited. I was so excited that God was going to let me be a missionary. And I got there and I got off the airplane and I thought, I'm a missionary. I am a missionary. I'm a missionary. I was so excited. And when I first got there, they put me in a, could somebody have a drink, could I have a glass of water? They put me in this building. It was a house. It was called a King Strand, which is a metal building. You don't want to live in a metal building in the tropics. If you want to know what that feels like, turn your oven up to about 120 degrees and get in it. And nobody had lived in it because by the time I got there, they knew that, you know, people can't live in that house. But they decided to put me in it. Good introduction to the mission field. So at one time it had not windows, but screens. Thank you. And all the screens had torn out many years before I got there. So there were no screens, just holes over there. And big jungle rats. I don't mean little mice, big jungle rats had taken it over. Now, when I was at Tennessee Temple, and we were having missionaries come all the time, and they all had stories about rats and spiders and snakes. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do every bit of it. I'm going to do it all. And I got there and I had these big jungle rats in my house. I was so excited. I wrote letters home and I said, I got rats over here as big as elephants. I borrowed a big rat trap from one of the missionaries, and I caught 7 in one night and didn't even scratch the surface. I could just watch them. I could just watch them come through those holes over there. And I'd been there a couple of days and I saw the biggest spider you've ever seen on the wall over there. And I thought, oh boy, this is great. This is great. Look at that little spider. And I thought I would swat it. And when I started to swat the thing, it jumped right at me. And of course I reacted like you would have. And then I got over that and I thought, oh wow. Not only do I have spiders, I have attack spiders. You don't get much more missionary than that. I never heard any missionary talk about an attack spider. And I was so excited. And nobody had told me about that spider, and I never told any new missionaries about it either because they got to learn down all on their own. I was just so excited. Now, before I went to the field, people would ask me, what are you going to do? And that irritated me. Let me ask one of these girls down here, what does a missionary do? Right. That's what I always learned. A missionary is somebody that goes and tells people about God, right? That's what a missionary is. Well, before I went to the field, people would say, well, what are you going to do? And that irritated me. I know they meant, are you going to be a nurse or a teacher or a bookkeeper or whatever. I'm going to go tell people about Jesus. I'm going to be a missionary. That's what I was going to do. And I didn't like them asking me these questions because I go, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to be a missionary. And so I was really anxious to tell people about Jesus. But I couldn't tell them a thing because I didn't know the language. Not only that, I was sure they were making fun of me. And after I started learning the language, I realized they really had been making fun of me. And then I started the Indonesian language, and then I worked in our office for a year, which I didn't want to do. I don't want to work in it, to go there and work in an office. But you know, you have to obey, don't you? So I worked in the office for a year, and then I went way down on the south coast in the jungle. No roads. The only way to get in was to fly in on a little mission one-engine airplane where we just cleared the jungle off and leveled it off a bit. And so you come in galloping like on a horse when you go hitting the rough airstrip. Or we could go in on the float plane, land on the river. But you get in there and you don't go anywhere. And I love the jungle. So I got down there for my ministry, and I discovered again, I wanted to tell them about Jesus, discovered again, I can't tell them anything because I've got a whole other language here. And not only that, this language was an unwritten language. Nobody had ever learned it. And they didn't have pencils, paper, nobody knew how to write it down to begin with. So my job then was to analyze the language, to reduce it to writing, which means I had to figure out the alphabet, got to figure out the grammar. You know, you go to school and you got grammar books. Well, that's what I had to do, is figure out that grammar and write the grammar books. And of course the goal was to do Bible translation. But I wanted to tell these people about Jesus. So I started studying this Chetak language, and people say, how do you learn a language that has never been written? I said, you make an idiot out of yourself. And I was really good at that. That means you have to act things out, you know. You eat a banana and hope he says you were eating a banana, stupid, or something like that, you know. And you do all sorts of these things and write down what he said. And a lot of times he didn't say what you expected him to say. So it's a slow process. And girls, I started before there was such a thing as computers. Now, there was a time when there was no such thing as computers. And so I had to do it all by hand to analyze the language, to make the alphabet and figure it out. But I was so anxious to tell them about Jesus. And finally I thought, okay, I'm going to have a ladies' class. The people were responsive. They were glad to have us. They wanted us there. And I was so anxious to learn to talk to them. And so I said, we'll have a ladies' class. Everybody shows up, the whole village. Now remember, babies don't wear diapers. So you can imagine what's going on while I'm teaching. And children are totally undisciplined. So it's really quite a circus. Well, they didn't understand what I was saying anyway, so it didn't matter, you know, because I wasn't speaking the language well enough. And I learned right up front, if a kid misbehaved over here, don't call it down. Because if you do, everybody over here yells at the mother. So you're better off just to hope she gets control. So because you cause more disturbance by calling them down. And a lot of exciting things, but I would teach them. And I thought they didn't understand anything I said. So next week I'd say, we're going to have a ladies' class. Then I'll show up again. Okay, here we are, tell us something. And I would stumble through it and they don't know what I've said. Well, the next week we're going to have a ladies' class. Then I'll show up again. And they just, you know, they keep wanting to come and hear. And finally I thought, now I know they understand. They know what I'm saying. For 3 years, from the time I was sure they were understanding, for 3 years before we had our first convert, I told them the same thing. I'd go over and over. And one of the ladies, my good friend Pamela, she says, Nona, you tell us that all the time. And I thought, why aren't you doing something about it? But you know, sometimes you learn something that you already knew. Does that make sense? You know, I got it in my head that these people are so responsive. They want to hear. They want me to teach them. All I have to do is love these people and learn their language, and they're all going to get saved. I loved them, and I learned their language. They didn't get saved. But you turn on your imagination here and try to imagine that you've never heard anything. You don't know anything. And this weird-looking person comes in here, and they tell you this outlandish story that there's somebody up there in the sky whose name is God. And he created the fish and the rivers where you get your food, all those animals in the jungle that you get to eat, which includes the good, delicious grub worms. And all these things that you eat, that creator up there, he created all those things for you. And he created the sun, moon, and stars, and he created me, and he created you. And then I would tell him, he's the one that sent us here to tell you that he loves you. And then I'd tell him, I would ask him, have you ever done anything bad? They didn't have a word for sin. Then, oh yeah, we've all done bad stuff. Then I'd tell them that creator has this really nice village. And in that village, they don't kill each other. They don't fight. They don't cry. They don't get sick. Because, see, they didn't have medicine until we got there. They get malaria, they die. They go out in the jungle, they cut their foot, they stick mud in it to keep it from bleeding. And I say, in God's nice village, nobody gets sick. Nobody dies. And their faces just light up. Boy, this is good news. And that's what the gospel is, isn't it? Good news. But I tell them that God said the tiniest little bad stuff, he's not going to let come. If you let any bad stuff come, it won't be a good village anymore. So he won't let any bad stuff come. So they let, boy, you know, you tell us all that, now you tell us we can't go, because I just ruled them all out, right? But then I tell them that I have good news for you. That creator up there, he opened a path for you. He had a son and his name was Jesus. And he came down here to earth, and he became a human being. He never did any bad stuff. And they'd say, he didn't do anything wrong? No. He didn't make any mistakes? No. And they still killed him? Yes. And that's not good. And they love the stories about Jesus. They'd say, who walked right on top of the water? Yes. They said, a blind man was like this, then he could see like this? Yes. They said, this stuff rose from the dead? Yes. And then asked me, did you know Jesus? No, he lived a long, long time before I was born. Did he speak your language? No. Was he from your tribe? No. And they'd look at me like, you're not making any sense. But I got to the substitutionary death of Jesus, and I lost him. It was like a physical barrier. It was right here. It was just like, it's not penetrating. And we began praying very specifically, sending letters home, asking people to pray. And I wish I could just make you understand that what happened. It was just like that, just like overnight, the light turned on. They started coming to my door, 6, 8, 10, 12 at a time, knock on my door. We want to ask God to forgive us. We want to pray and ask God to forgive us. But I'm dealing with those other group would be knocking on my door. And some of the men were the first converts who were helping me learn the language. I said, you come in here, let me show you what I'm doing. Now you take that group and you take that group. Across the airstrip down here was another language. They started coming. It spread to the outlying villages. And they were just coming just by the dozens at a time, asking God to save them. And what a thrill it was seeing conviction. I remember Piri. Piri was a good friend. And we were in church one Sunday morning, and I was sitting back with her, and she fidgeted, and I thought she must be sick. What's the matter with her? She fidgeted all through the service. Started to give an invitation, her hand went up. Well, she wouldn't ask God to forgive her. But she thought she had to confess every sin she had ever committed. And she started out. This is when I stole so-and-so's catfish. This is when I got in a fight. And this is when I beat my kids. And this is when I stole somebody else's other kind of fish. Then she named these 5. Then she stuck her foot up. She named these 5 toes. Then she stuck this foot up, and I thought she'd running out of anything to count. Then she got her hands, her fingers, and her toes all counted. She sat there for a couple of seconds, and she says, God, there's lots more in there. And she asked God to forgive her. And she got through praying, and she says, now I can go to heaven, can I? I said, yes, Piri, now you can go to heaven. But what a thrill to see the Holy Spirit working. Okay, now you know none of us can take credit. I tried. I couldn't do it. Only God, the Holy Spirit, could open their hearts to make them understand such an outlandish, foolish story as the gospel is. But what a thrill when he opened their hearts and they began coming to see him. Now I'll tell you the most rewarding thing I did. Then I'm going to tell you something about the most exciting thing. The most rewarding thing I did was being able to translate the New Testament into 2 different languages. Both these tribal languages were right there where I was. And what a joy to be able to give them God's word in their own language. And one of my most favorite videos is Wapet, old village chief. They could come up front and pick up the one they wanted. We had red ones and blue ones and black ones, and they could pick up the one they wanted. And Wapet came up and he picked his up, and he was going back to his seat, hugging his Bible to himself. And Wapet couldn't read a word, but he was so thrilled to have it. And I can't even tell you what a joy, and you think, Lord, you let this old country girl, this old country girl didn't have much sense to do anything, and you let me do that. I can't, it's just hard for me still to believe that he let me do it. Now I'm going to start on the most rewarding thing I ever did, and I'm going to have to, I get excited about it, so we may be here till breakfast. What time is that thing, 8:30 tomorrow morning? I was in the field in 1964. In September 1980, I was on furlough, and I came back from furlough. Now, up here, we're just jungle, flat jungle with just rivers like little snakes running around in there, but just flat jungle. And here you've got a range of mountains, and just across that range of mountains is Wamena. And the pilot lived at Wamena. And he would fly down here to our station every 3 to 6 weeks. He'd bring us mail. He didn't forget the mail because my coworker, she made sure, because she let the pilot know that if he forgot the mail, those chocolate chips in his cookies that we served him would be X-Lax. So he'd bring the mail and vegetables from the mountain stations and our supplies that we had ordered. And the pilot says, as he crosses the range of mountains down there, he said, I'm seeing some villages. We didn't know anybody was up there in that area. You know, they had just so happened that they moved right into the path of the airplane, and he could see them down there. And they said they were still, looked like they were still living up in treetops. And we were anxious to know who these people were. Were they, their language, were they more related to us, or more related to the tribes up in the foothills of the mountains? So we were going to go in to find out. I was the linguist. So of course, I get to go in, don't I? And of course, they didn't know what was going to happen. They might not have let me go, but they couldn't have kept me out after that first trip. Now, we knew there was no way we'd have to go in by helicopter. There's no way we could get in by boat because you couldn't even see the rivers under there. You knew they were there because their canoes had to come in and out, but of course, an outboard motor couldn't get in. And of course, a float plane, we couldn't, no river big enough for that. As a helicopter, I had never flown on a helicopter before. But they had just cut the trees down, and they left them where they cut them. So you may have one down close and another laying on top of it was higher, and the way they did, they were all different heights off the ground, the way they had cut the trees down and left them. So the deal was, the pilot, he was a rescue pilot in Vietnam, so he was a good pilot, although he was not familiar with the culture of the people. But he was going to take us in. There were 3 of us. There was myself, Domingos Mayor, who was a graduate of our Bible school. He did not speak the Chitak language, but he spoke Indonesian. And then Noak, who was a Singo, a Chitak Christian. So the 3 of us were going to go in. Now the helicopter is going to hover over these logs, and we're going to swing out of the helicopter. That's when I was young enough to swing out of the helicopter. I'd plop out. Now, we were going to swing out of the helicopter. Now, I don't remember even wondering about how I was going to get back up into that helicopter. I was more concerned about how I'm going to get out of it. Well, he came in and he saw this nice long building. He said these are just native structures, you know, with poles and palm branches. But the other trees were up in the treetops. Other houses were in the treetops. And he saw that nice long building. He thought that'd be a lovely place to put us off. And that was their ceremonial house. We knew that's where they eat people. These people were still cannibals. And the pilot thought that'd be a nice place to put us off. So he came in and he told me, he said, now I'll hover overhead for a while to be sure you're all right. Well, he hovered over these logs, and I swung out of the helicopter into the arms of stark, naked, birthday suit, naked men. They were jumping up and down, shouting, chanting, and just absolute total bedlam. And I had a little bag on my shoulder with some gifts I had taken for them. But and I couldn't fall off the log. You know, they were holding us and they were pulling us into that longhouse, and we didn't want to go in that house. And Domingos in front, he kept saying, we'll just talk out here. He was pulling back, we'll just talk out here. But he was speaking Indonesian, and I thought they don't understand that for sure. I got just a glimpse of Noak behind me, and his eyes were about like that. And he kept saying, we came to tell you about God. Well, I thought, we don't know if they even speak Chitak or not. And I thought, for the first time in my life, I was scared speechless. I don't remember saying a word. And, but they were all holding on to me and jumping up and down and shouting and chanting. And I heard that plane fly away. Found out that he announced to the entire island that they're getting a good reception, they're being hugged. There's a difference in being hugged and being held. We were being held. And so when he flew away, I can't describe the feeling that came across me. The feeling came across me, and I thought, okay, Lord, you're all we've got. It's just you and us. And a real peace came across me. At the same time, I saw Domingos visibly relax. I couldn't see Noak behind him, but Domingos visibly relaxed. Okay, They took us on into the building, they pushed us down on the floor, and they were all over me, hands, feet, everything was all over me. And a naked headhunter plopped himself right down on my lap. Now, what do you do if a naked headhunter sits on your lap? I was smart enough to know not to slap him. But I pretended my feet had gone to sleep, and I got up, and they pushed me right back down again. But we found out we'd been there for about an hour, and one of the men, they were speaking our language. We could talk to them. And so that was really good, except Domingos. He couldn't talk to them. And so one of the men told the Noah, said, now that thing, talking to Domingos, that's a man, we know that. And we know you're a man. But that thing, pointing to me, said, that's a spirit, isn't it? And I said, that's the reason they were giving me all the attention and sitting on my lap and all that sort of stuff. But Noah, he died laughing. No, 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 that's a female. And I'm thinking, don't tell them that. That's what they go to war for. That's what they kill for, is to steal women. Don't just let them think I'm a spirit. But we fell in love with these people. We fell in love with them. And it's amazing. They were cannibals. They killed people and ate them. But you'd be around them and they can't believe that you do that. They were so fun. And beautiful sense of humor, but that first day they were just, Noah started to talk to them, and he sort of said to them the same thing I said to you a while ago about the Creator up there. And he said, he's the one that sent us here to tell you that he loves you, and I was getting goose chills, and I think, I get to be here. I get to, they've never heard that before, and I get to be here. And one of the men kept saying, the Creator loves us, the Creator loves us. And we spent a couple of hours. And then that flying canoe, that's what they call the helicopter, that flying canoe came back to pick us up. And we told them that we were going to leave. We didn't know if we were going to leave or not. But we said we're going to leave, but we're going to come back again. And one of the men walked over to me and he says, when you come back again, would you bring us some skin? And I thought I see an awful lot of skin right now. They were asking for clothes. That was the only way they knew to say it. I've heard people say, well, they got saved, so they put clothes on. No, they saw clothes. They wanted us to bring them some, so I can't say that they got saved and put them on. They put them on because they saw us wearing clothes, and they thought that would be pretty neat. But next time we went in, the mission had gotten pretty concerned about this because, you know, they didn't understand what we were going to face when we got there on that trip. But we would go in and they would say, did you come to fight? And we'd say, you brought nothing to fight with. And two, you know, you don't go to fight and bring your women with you. So with me being along, they knew that they wouldn't come to fight because you don't take your women if you're going to go to fight. So we said, no, you didn't bring anything to fight with. But we went in for the second time, and so the people at Singo, the women especially, were mourning for us like they do when somebody dies. And they'd tell me this, and they're going to cut your head off, they're going to cut your arms off, and they're going to eat you. And really encouraging, you know. And so when we left to go back for the second trip, the women were heard in the village, they were all mourning for us because they said we're never going to come back again. But we got there, and when we looked down, I looked down, and hey, look at there, you know, they had these little poles, they had lined up little poles and tied them together with vines and making a place for the helicopter to land. Oh, goody, we're going to get a good reception. They're waiting for us. They're looking for us. And so when we landed and the helicopter pilot stepped off the plane, they looked at him and they said, there's the Creator. We told them the Creator lived up in the sky. And there he came right out of the sky. And we got back on the plane that day and he announced over the radio, this is the Creator speaking. And then another time when one of our other male missionaries was along, they thought he was God, so we thought, well, we still got some explaining to do. God and the Creator is the same person, but we had to, it's not a human, it's not that pilot. But we just, every time we'd go, we'd teach them a little bit more, talk a little bit more. And just loved the people. I mean, they had a good sense of humor. They loved to tease. They chased me around the village with a dead snake one day and had so much fun chasing me around. And then we were trying to encourage them to move down to a large river so we could get in by boat because that helicopter was awfully expensive. And they had to make peace with their enemies in order to do that. And then finally they made peace and they moved out, and then we says, okay, it's time for us to overnight. Before we had done that, though, when we were there, they went out in the yard, they'd catch these little pigs in the jungle, and then they'd feed them, and the pigs would just stay right there, you know, they'd just tame themselves, and they like to getting food here, so they wouldn't leave. And so they went out and killed a pig and go have a pig feast. So they brought it in and they laid it on the floor. And all these little roaches, little tiny little roaches were crawling all over that meat. And I got my eye, you know, looking, watching that meat of this one little sticking on the highest. I'm going to get that piece. Well, we told them to close their eyes and we were going to thank God for the food. Well, they thought it was magic and wouldn't close their eyes. So, okay, you keep your eyes open and Noah's going to pray. And I've got my eye on that piece of pork. And Noah prayed, and he got through, and I ground my piece. I got it. They could get a piece of bamboo, and make a knife sharp enough to shave with. And I think you just whack that piece of meat up, and I got my piece of meat. And Powell, the village chief, your village chief, if you kill the most people, that was Powell. And well, he just reached and grabbed it out of my hand, and handed it to a guy over here, and he ate a piece of it, and he handed it back to me, and his hands were just caked with filth. And I thought, oh, no. And I thought, at least it had just come off the fire down here. And I found out that that was to prove to me that they had not put a curse on the food. I wasn't afraid of witchcraft. I was afraid of his filthy hands.
Yes, yes.
But the Lord protected me in so many experiences like that. But so many, we encouraged them to move down to a river, and they did. And then we said, okay, it's time for us to go stay with them. So my co-worker and I, we went and spent a couple of weeks with them. Had such a good time just living with them and eating their food and just living the way they did, except we had clothes on. And just getting to know them better and winning their confidence and teach them a little bit more, And one day this old man came up to me and he says, Nona, what was that man's name now that got killed? And I said, Jesus. He said, I'm going to put it right here, and I'm not going to forget it again. So 5 years from that first trip in, 5 years, we were going up, and I thought we were going to have our first converts. I just really believe we're going to have the first converts. Vito was the assistant chief. He killed a man who had shot Powell. And so that made him assistant chief. Powell was chief because he killed the most people. Vito had been really responsive. He was responsive from the very beginning. Powell was not responsive. He listened to everything. He accused me of lying. And he was not interested. But I thought Powell will be our first convert. Powell is going to get saved first. Well, that's the time we went up there. We'd been there for several days, and we had church service, and Jacob preached. We were just sitting around in one of the huts, and Jacob preached on the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. And he said, does anybody want to pray and confess your sins to God and ask him to forgive you? And one guy says, I do. Odon says, I do. Odon was the one that had sat on my lap that first trip in there. We took them inside the little hut and prayed with them, and they both asked God to save them. I was so excited, our first converts. At the same time, I was disappointed because I thought it would be Bido. Bido, they says he's going out into the jungle fishing and hunting, and he won't be back for several days. We were leaving the next morning, and I thought, well, Bido won't show up. We'll maybe the next trip. Well, that evening, getting close to dark, Bido showed up. He and I in the jungle, and the Holy Spirit was really dealing with him. He came in and he brought me a big fish that he had just caught and gave me a fish. And he's standing out there and he says, Nona, when I killed those people, God saw me, didn't he? And I said, yes, he did. He said, I chopped that man's chest open with an axe. He said, God saw me. Yes. When I stole those women, God saw me. Yes, he did. And I said, Vito, that's what we came for, is to tell you that God will forgive you. We brought him into the little hut where we were, and we talked with him and we prayed, and I'll never forget it. Vito prayed for the first time. He says, God, I've stolen women. I've killed people. He said, I chopped that. I set that man's chest open with an axe. He says, God, I just don't want you to think about that anymore. That's their way of asking for forgiveness. And I was sitting there with goose chills, and I was thinking, God's forgotten it, and he'll never think about it anymore. There were 3 of those villages. There were Vacabus, that's what I've been telling you about. Then another was Bubis and Nassau. I was over at Bubis, and the chief there was Bowater. And the book out there, that's Bowater on the front of that book. Bowater was the chief, and he had killed, I've forgotten, I think it was about 5 people that he had killed. And I was over there when we were visiting there, and a guy over at Vacabus had just died. And Bowater says, he never asked God to forgive him, did he? And I said, no, he didn't. He said, he went to hell, didn't he? I said, I'm afraid he did. And Bowater says, can I ask him to forgive me? And I said, you sure can. So standing out in the village, praying for Bowater, and he asked God to forgive him. And I said, Bowater, who's your father now? He thought a bit, and he says, God's my father. I said, God's my father. So what does that make us? He said, we're brother and sister. Bowater was my brother. Now fast forward again. I was getting ready to retire. And we helped all 3 of those villages to build churches. We set our men up with a chainsaw and cut down some rough lumber and built a little sturdier church. Their churches they build just out of the palm branches. They fall down in about 6 months. So we were helping them build a little better church. And I was just 2 or 3 days, I would be leaving to come home to retire. And we went up to Bowater's village to dedicate the church. And it was so exciting to go in there and watch this. They didn't want benches or anything in the church. They were used to sitting on the floor, so they just sat on the floor. Here was Bowater sitting right up front. And I thought, oh, wow, look at that. Here's this headhunter who's killed and eaten people sitting out here worshiping the Lord. What an exciting thing. And we were getting ready to leave. Remember, I'm coming home to retire after 40 years. We went out to get on the boat, go back down to Singo where I lived, and a couple of days after that I would be flying out to come home. And Bowater came out to me, and he says, Nona, thank you for coming. You brought us out of the darkness into the light. Thank you for telling us how we could go to heaven. That was worth the whole 40 years, the whole 40 years. Latest when I got on that airplane, 1964, I was so excited. I was so excited that the Lord was going to let me be a missionary. I just turned 80 years old in October, and ladies, I'm still excited. I'm so excited that the Lord loved me, that he saved me. I'm so excited that he let me serve him. You know, it's so easy for us to complain. You know, when we're asked to do something in the church or whatever, and it's so easy to complain about it. Why didn't you let her do it? Why did you make me do it? Why did they always ask me to do that? You know, it's so easy for us to complain. And I say, Lord, please help me not to complain. Because what an honor. What an honor. Young girls down here, maybe God will call you to be a missionary. And you know that you've been highly honored. I teach new missionaries, and last year I told them, I said, you're nothing. He doesn't need you. So don't think you're somebody. You're nobody. He doesn't need you. But now look at it this way. He chose you. He chose you. And because of that, you are somebody. You're an ambassador for the King of Kings. So you can go out with your head high, humbled because you know that he doesn't need you. But so happy because he chooses to use us. When I was on the field, one time the American ambassador was coming to our island. This was a big deal. And the only Americans there were missionaries. So he was going to come. Now, see, the people there had no idea who he was. So he was perfectly safe. But they had the whole bill. He came into the mission head. I just happened to be out on the coast when he came. I just happened to be out there, the only reason that I got to see him. But They had, military police all the way surrounding the whole office and everything, and all this pomp and splendor. And there are people that wonder what's going on over there. They didn't have any idea. But anyway, all the missionaries who were out there on the coast, we could come in and we could meet him. And so we were full of people. We had a little Indonesian lady that worked in the office, and she was going to serve cookies and a drink. And so I went back and was going to help her. She says, no, that's your ambassador. You go out there and honor your ambassador. And I said, but there's a lot of people out there. Let me help you. Let me help you serve the drinks. No, she kept shoving me away and shoving me away. And I said, hey, wait a minute. I said, that man out there, I said, he's the ambassador for the President of the United States of America. I said, us, we're ambassadors for the King of Kings. I said, let's go out there and get that man a cookie and get him out of here. Let's get him out of here. Ladies, what a thrill, what a joy. How honored we are to be able to serve the King of Kings. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'll thank him for all eternity. We'll never be able to thank him for the privilege of being able to serve him. He's a great God. I love him with all my heart. And I hope that we'll all grow and love him even more every day.